Hey, just a quick view of how I organize a point cloud working in Vectorworks. I have an import layer for bringing in all of the point clouds. I then bring in isolated, sort of like chopped up, segmented cloud groups into the file. They all have the same shared origin, the 00 point. And all of this work happens sort of like that's the prep work I do through the registration process. And then over here, we can turn on, we can turn on and off individual areas, right? Like we did get some of the surround when scanning, the scanning path really only was around the courtyard here, but we did end up getting, the Department of Water and Power across the street. So I left it in because it was interesting. I think later on we're going to scan the rest of this courtyard, but for now it's kind of nice to be able to turn that off. And then, all of these, if for some reason I wanted to turn off the courtyard and the exterior, I can get just the sort of interiors of the theater. And again, these are individually controlled, right? If we want to turn off the ceiling, if we, just want to see the beams, great. We can get down to just that information kind of quickly, easily. How we organize that, is sort of, I go off of, previous experience, but can be directed, organized in a certain way. And then I really like to use the clip cube to slice into, the room. Let's see, that's about the center line, right? So now we'll come in here and we have a pretty nice section of the room, and then can dial this in, right? So now it's just a sort of center line section just through the middle of the room. So it's like 1 or 2 feet. If we look at it from above, it's about 2 feet thick, right? This is where I start to, you can start to draw on top of this, right? There are a few tricks with it. The clip cube clips all layers and classes, so you can't, right now I can come in and I can create this line and it will show up in the model, but if I were working, off center, that line would exist, but it suddenly disappears, right? So that's one of the challenges of the clip cube inside Vectorworks, is that you have to set your working plane to be within the clip cube. Okay, it's a little annoying, but it's manageable. And once you set those up, you can use save views to kind of get back to it. So it's not that big of a deal, but it's like extra steps, right? This is where point cloud software wins in terms of it's a lot easier to do it in those other softwares I was talking about. But we can now turn on the courtyard and pull this out. Now we can see that sort of, at the front door, all of that stuff has shown up. And again, kind of, I think we can get the Amundsen, the sort of space between the Amundsen and the Forum shows up as well, right? And so we have sort of better control here. We can turn on that ceiling as well to get that in. And now, if for any reason we can start to see the level change outside, stuff like that. If I turn this off and the other sort of like hiccup that I always show people is that in a 3D view, point clouds look really good in Vectorworks. When you go to that top plan view, which I love working in, the point cloud itself turns to sand, right? Like it just turns to the ugliest, messiest nonsense, right? If I go back to a top view, it's a lot easier to work with that data. And so you are limited to working in a 3D view, not the top plan view. So like anything, there's trade-offs, right? but this is how you can sort of like quickly and easily get into a point cloud without having to model every last bit of the site in order to make it useful. And I think for a facility, it makes sense. We tend to draw those up, but especially for like quick, down and dirty event support, this ends up being more than enough. I will share, the point cloud does not always show up in the drawing. It typically only shows up in the model. So you can't then cut a slice of section and use it in a drawing. And the problem is sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So it might work the first time, but the second time it won't.